Hello everybody and welcome back to the Not Applicable Formula 1 channel. I hope you are well and I hope you enjoyed the Portuguese Grand Prix. Let's be honest, it wasn't as good as the two Grand Prix beforehand, but there's still lots and lots of talking points that I'd like to go through and talk to you about after this race. And I think actually it puts the Drivers' Championship in a bit of a weird position at the moment. So let's jump into the main sort of things that happened over the course of the weekend. Of course, it was a Mercedes weekend, both on Saturday and on Sunday. Valtteri Bottas taking pole, Hamilton taking the win. I don't think anyone can really argue that it was very much a Mercedes weekend. They were very much the fastest car. I know that Verstappen was a little bit upset with his performance. When it came to the actual race, though, Hamilton was absolutely electric. He was incredibly good. I know that he got passed by Verstappen just after the safety car, but then after he got past Verstappen and after he then got past Bottas, I think it was plain sailing for Hamilton there. I think nobody was going to come anywhere near him whatsoever. It was one of those really professional drives from Hamilton. I said at the beginning of the weekend, I had this feeling that this track was going to be good for Hamilton. The mixed conditions, very windy, not a lot of grip everywhere, very hot on one day, not so hot on the other day. Yeah, it just felt like a Hamilton race to win, and he absolutely shone through. As I said, though, Max Verstappen was a little bit frustrated, I think, on the Saturday. I think he thought he was going to be on pole position, but he just couldn't quite get the car together. I know that in free practice 3, he was saying he really struggled in that third sector, and I think it accumulated during the race. We saw that he was trying to get past Bottas, and he couldn't quite get it to go together in that third sector and therefore get that real boost from the DRS. And then it just meant that he had to pass him in the pit stops. Did eventually get past Bottas, quite a nice little move, but mainly because Bottas's tyres were not quite there. So I think Verstappen probably could have ended up coming in third, even though Bottas was pretty slow overall over the course of the weekend. But I don't know, I think Verstappen could have ended up coming in third if Bottas could have got his tyres going after that pit stop. But again, you can't really complain for Verstappen. Another second place finish, doesn't lose too many points to Hamilton. And, I think maybe he's just waiting for Hamilton to have a really bad weekend to jump above him in the Drivers' Championship. Then we move on. Bottas, as I was saying, not the best weekend. Got that pole position. Maybe people were a bit confused about him getting that pole position. Not many people seemed to think that he was going to get it. It was a bit of a damp end to qualifying where everyone was like, oh, is there going to be a fight between Hamilton and Verstappen? Who's going to be able to come out on top? And then neither of them could set a faster lap. And Bottas sort of got the pole position by D-pole as much as it was a really weird end to qualifying. And yeah, Bottas got the pole position, but I don't think anyone was really that excited by it, to be honest. Perez, I do just want to have a quick chat about. Perez, another sort of really mixed weekend. Obviously ended up coming fourth in the end, but took a very roundabout way of getting there. An incredible drive on the medium tyres, driving them for nearly 60 laps before then changing over to the soft compounds at the end. I thought maybe he'd find a lot of pace with those soft compounds at the end and try to catch up Bottas, but that never really happened. He would have had to make up 1 to 2 seconds a lap, which would have been an incredible feat from Perez, again in a car that he didn't seem too happy with over the course of the weekend. Let's move into the midfield cars though, and we've got to talk about Lando Norris because my goodness, Lando Norris was absolutely electric again. I don't know what it is about Lando Norris in this car at the moment. Let's have a look at the actual driver standards at the end of the day. Best of the rest again. Puts himself in that 5th position ahead of everybody else in the field and just behind both of those Mercedes and both of those Red Bulls. You cannot argue that he is having an amazing season so far. And if we actually look at the driver's standings, he's put himself in 3rd place. So I know that he's only just ahead of Bottas. And Bottas, obviously, with two 3rd place finishes, and probably would have picked up those. Oh, I don't know, actually. If Bottas would have finished in Imola, it would be very, very close between the two of them. But you can't argue with Norris putting himself in that position already. I think this is the season that Norris really takes that step forward. I think this is the season where possibly we see the end of Daniel Ricciardo. And I know that that is a massive thing to say. I've got a video coming out about McLaren and this season, but has Daniel Ricciardo taken one step too far? He moved from Red Bull to Renault because he wanted to be the main driver. He got that opportunity at Renault and then now has taken another step to McLaren. Obviously, McLaren showing a lot more pace than the Alpine at the moment, but is that going to come back to bite him? Going into a team where Lando Norris already knows the car, already knows everything that is going on within the team, is so ingrained in McLaren right now. I don't know. I think it's going to be very, very close for McLaren this season. And you've got to remember, they're sort of at the ends of the spectrum in terms of their career. Daniel Ricciardo getting towards the end now. Possibly we could see him, is this his last couple of seasons really fighting for titles? And Lando Norris on the other side, he was a rookie a couple of seasons ago. He's coming into a McLaren team and now he's showing this kind of pace every single weekend. Very, very interesting to see. But I think the two of them are going to have quite the battle ahead of them. Obviously not on track at the moment because Ricciardo is so far behind. Actually had a really good drive in the end, Ricciardo. I think starting in 16th was a bit of a shock to him. I don't think he really understood that he needed to maybe put in another flying lap in qualifying. I think he thought he was safe. And obviously going out in Q3 gave him a lot of ideas for his strategy at the weekend. And he played it out pretty well, let's be honest. Stormed through the field, ended up finishing pretty well overall. But I'd love to see an on-track battle between these two. I think that could be really, really exciting to see. We then move to Ferrari, and Ferrari, a mixed weekend. Leclerc did exceptionally well. So Leclerc now in 5th place in the Drivers' Championship because he has just been so consistent. And obviously finishing 6th yesterday. Was the first of those drivers in the midfield pack to go for the medium hard compound strategy. And I think we saw how that worked for him and how it did not work for Carlos Sainz. So Carlos Sainz was the first driver to start on the soft compound tyre and then moved very quickly to the medium compound. And to be fair, before the race weekend, Pirelli sort of estimated that would be the best strategy for the weekend. They said that the Pirelli tyres, you're probably going to get the softs to about lap 20, 25, and then you could go to the medium for the rest of the race. And that just did not work out. Carlos Sainz, first to blink, went onto the medium compounds and just lost all of his pace. Really, really tough weekend for Carlos Sainz, but really, really good for Leclerc. Was the first to start in those mediums, obviously got those mediums up to temperature, kept his track position pretty well on those medium tyres, and then did the same as the front runners did. Copied basically Hamilton, Verstappen's, Bottas's strategy, went from the mediums to the hard compounds in the end, and then just had those hard compounds to the end of the race. And it worked out really, really well for Leclerc. Now, I want to talk about Alpine, because Alpine have come out of nowhere. I think in Bahrain, we were a little bit disappointed by Alpine, but they've had those few weeks. In Imola, they were pretty good last time out. They got their points. They got their points pretty luckily. Obviously, Kimi Raikkonen losing out because of that penalty at the end. But this weekend, I think they really showed that they are going to be in that midfield battle. They're going to be looking ahead. I know that Norris is having an incredible season and Leclerc is just electric at the moment. But I think they're going to be looking forward and seeing those other drivers. And they're going to want to be in the mix there. They're going to put themselves in the mix with the McLarens, the Ferraris, the AlphaTauris. I think Alpine really are looking forward now rather than backwards. Both of them finishing in the points again. Ocon with a 7th place finish, started in 6th. And Alonso with an 8th place finish, and he started in 13th. So a really, really good weekend for Alpine. And if they keep making these steps forward, are they going to be battling on track with Norris, with Leclerc? We saw Sainz really, really struggled to keep his pace. And then Ricciardo, Gasly were able to get in front of Sainz. And Sainz ended up outside the points in 11th. I know that he got his strategy, in my opinion, completely wrong. But I don't know. I feel like, those Alpines, they're cut in the middle there. So you've got Norris and Leclerc just ahead, but Gasly, Sainz, and so on, all just behind. Ricciardo just behind. So they're sort of cutting in between those middle teams. And I think that's exactly where Alpine want to be. They want to be consistently in the points, in that 7th to 10th place slot. And then with some upgrades, with some different strategies, maybe pushing those Norrises, those Leclercs, the Perez's into 4th place. I reckon I could see Alpine getting a podium at some point this season, is what I'm saying. The AlphaTauris, not really much to say. Gasly, again, another just mixed weekend. Just didn't really qualify that great. I know that he's been consistently P5 over the first 2 races. I think the AlphaTauri just didn't show the pace that it has shown in the other 2 tracks. And I think this is where we've first seen the real change in the kind of tracks that we're going to see. Verstappen said that he was really struggling. Perez looked at times like he was really struggling, even though he got himself in that position where he was basically guaranteed fourth. He was never going to catch third. Norris was never going to catch him in fifth. So it became a bit of a parade for Perez. But Gasly, in and amongst those fights, managed to get himself back up into 10th place. And it was looking like he wasn't going to get those points at one point. And then obviously Yuki Tsunoda with another, not disappointing. I know that he's very new to Formula One, but after Bahrain, I think everyone sort of jumped on the Yuki Tsunoda bandwagon. And now 2 races on, we're maybe seeing that, the rookie side of his game come in really slow last time out in Imola. Lots and lots of mistakes. Ended up getting a penalty as well. Nearly got a penalty for the same thing. Track limits this weekend. Really, really slow in qualifying. Really slow in the race. Never really looked like he was going to gain any positions. And then finishing in 15th place, a lap down on everybody else. So Yuki Tsunoda there behind both Aston Martins, behind Giovinazzi. Probably would have been behind Kimi Raikkonen as well. So yeah, really tough weekend for Yuki Tsunoda. Let's talk about Aston Martin whilst we're on the subject then. Vettel and Stroll finishing 13th and 14th. And I'm really concerned about Aston Martin. I don't think they've got the pace that they showed last year in any way whatsoever. I think they are really, really struggling. Vettel did really well, actually, to get into Q3, in my opinion. And Stroll, obviously, starting down in 17th. Obviously, Stroll came into this weekend with an upgrade package as well. And Vettel looked quicker than Stroll over the course of the whole weekend. So don't know if that upgrade has really been an upgrade, more of a downgrade for Stroll, which is going to be interesting considering we've only got a week to the next race in Spain. Are they going to be able to sort out those upgrades so that they actually work on the car? Maybe not. So maybe we could see Stroll again really struggle with that upgrade package, or they could find it, they could click into fruition and maybe get back into those points. But going to be very interesting looking forward. And I think Vettel in particular needs to get in the points very, very soon. Qualified 10th. I think people were expecting him to, professional drive, really good drive from 10th, maybe end up in the points, just be consistent throughout the race. And he just couldn't. It wasn't really him. It was just the car was not quick enough in any way whatsoever to keep it together. And Vettel, ended up in 13th behind the likes of Giovinazzi, Sainz, Gasly, Ricciardo, Alonso. They all started behind him, and it was, very, very tricky weekend for Vettel again. But I want to see more from Vettel in a race day going forward, possibly with a car that, can really boost him up the rankings. Then we move on a little bit. Let's talk about it then. The only real incident from the race, the only massive talking point, I would say, is Kimi Raikkonen obviously bumping into Giovinazzi at the end of lap 1, moving into lap 2. Looked like a bit of a racing incident. Giovinazzi just seemed to be driving in a straight line and be so much slower than Kimi Raikkonen coming off of turn 15. It was really strange to see, but Kimi Raikkonen having a very, very short race. His front wing coming off and then going down into turn 1, just managed to beach it in the gravel. And never really looked like he was going to make any ground up, to be honest. I think we were all looking for a Kimi Raikkonen of last year where he qualified 16th and then after a lap he was 6th place. It just didn't seem like that was going to happen for him this weekend. Maybe he would have got up into the points. It's a Kimi Raikkonen drive. Could he have been in front of Gasly or maybe kept a Ricciardo behind him? He's a professional driver. He's been there for a very long time, very experienced. I could have seen that happening, but we never really got to see it. And then Giovinazzi finishing in 12th was a bit of a non-plus day for him too. The Williams, George Russell, George, Mr. Saturday himself. And my God, did he show that he is Mr. Saturday at the moment. Finishing in 11th when it came to qualifying, and then in the race, the slowest I have seen that Williams in a very long time. He just could not seem to get it together. It was really strange. Even Latifi really struggling as well with pace. Latifi ended up finishing behind Mick Schumacher in the Haas. Not something that I thought I'd see at all this season. I thought the Haas's were just going to finish those back two. But yeah, Latifi actually getting taken over by Mick Schumacher, and Russell just dropping down the order just like an absolute stone from the start into 16th position for him. And after I'd predicted he might get some points on this weekend, because I thought lots of people are going to struggle with these tyres, lots of people are going to be able to maybe take advantage of the different strategies going on along the grid, but yeah, it just didn't come together for Russell. And we look ahead for next weekend for his first points in a Williams. He needs to get those points in a Williams, right? It'd be just so good for him if he could get some points in that Williams car before moving on to the Mercedes team, because he deserves it. He's been so good. And I do really feel for him. Final team I want to talk about then, Haas and Mick Schumacher. You know, Mick Schumacher had a pretty good weekend. Ended up finishing in front of Latifi on race pace. And, you know, that's a real step up considering where they were beforehand. Mick Schumacher, I think, had a very good weekend again. Mazepin is a bloody joke. I said this on the stream. Mazepin now, at this point, like, we've had drivers in Formula 1 that have been not really, you know, warranting their place. But my goodness, Mazepin getting in front of Perez when there's blue flags and getting a 5-second penalty when you're already finishing like 3 laps behind everyone else. Just it was appalling. Oh my god, I can't even muster the words for Mazepin at the moment. I'm just ridiculously distraught that the fact that he's able to get a drive when there are so many drivers that are waiting in the wings. Like, we saw Ilott driving for Alfa Romeo this weekend. Imagine if Ilott was in that Haas seat. Like, at least he would show some sort of actual race face, some sort of quality. But, you know, it's a money game as well in Formula 1. And I don't know, I got really angry at one point when Mazepin and Perez had that coming together. So maybe need to keep a little bit of a top on it from myself and not blow off just because it is Mazepin. But bloody hell, he just gets on my nerves at this point. But overall, it was Lewis Hamilton's weekend. I think Lewis Hamilton should have probably been on pole on Saturday. I think he'll be a little bit gutted he didn't get that 100th pole position, but he did get the 97th win and an incredible drive as well. Great moves on Verstappen and Bottas, you know, really earned that win. Drove perfectly and professionally, was on the correct strategy, knew when to change his tyres, knew when to keep his tyres fresh. It was really good drive from Hamilton. And we move on to Spain next weekend. I want to say thank you so much to everybody who joined the live stream. If you want to join, we are going to be live again for both qualifying and the race. We start about half an hour before the start time of the race on Saturday and Sunday. So I would look forward to seeing you then. It is a really good group of people. Lots of questions in the chat. Lots of talking about Formula 1 and lots of people who know what they are talking about. Probably more than me. But as I was saying, thank you so much. If you could hit subscribe, I'm trying to hit 50 subscribers. That would be absolutely amazing. Also leave a like. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you next time.